saving of the Elks has been complete. Are they good with this sale and this deal as it's going?
The James Family Trust does endorse the sale to this buyer.
Jim?
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. Thank you for your leadership in the process. I want to thank the trust for having the confidence in the city of Prescott to invest in the city of Prescott. And I think this is a good thing for both the trust and the city. And I'll leave it at that.
Anyone else, Council? Craig, the only question I've had brought to me is, and maybe you could speak a little bit, that honoring the existing dates that we have scheduled for the Opera House.
Mayor, in the purchase agreement, there is a provision that the buyer will honor the contractual commitments that the city, as current owner, has entered into for performances and other uses of the Elks Opera House building. There is a provision in the sales agreement that will provide rent, if you will, of a percentage of the ticket sales. Not all of the events in there which have been contracted do involve ticket sales, and the buyer is further allowing those non-ticket events to go on. So if there is a contract in place, it will be honored by the buyer of the Elks Theater.
I just got one more thing, Mayor, if I could. You know, of the 1.3, we're rebating $300,000, and that's going into further renovations that I understand are needed fairly immediately. And if this sale did not go through, we'd be on the hook for a lot more than $300,000.
Mayor, if I might, that is an accurate statement. The $300,000 figure, although it is negotiated, is less than the city would face in rehabilitating and stabilizing the exterior of the building. That is not just an arbitrary number. There will be a presentation to the Preservation Commission of the city at the end of this week, in a couple of days, which will outline the scope of that work to be done. And again, the amount which would be required for the city's portion of the exterior is well in excess of that $300,000.
And this deal also relieves the city of the yearly costs we have with personnel and the heating and the cooling. And
that is also correct, that in recent years the city has been incurring an operating deficit, if you will, of approximately $100,000 per year to keep the Elks open and operating.
so it goes into the hands of people that are passionate about the theater business, the historic theater business, and it gets the city out from underneath the cost of this.
That is the singular focus of this, that it's being conveyed to a buyer with the attributes that you just mentioned.
Thank you.
Anyone else, Council? Those from the public? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Rob Petrich. I'm here today representing the buyer, the Elks Theater and Performing Arts Center, which is an Arizona nonprofit corporation. On my way over today to City Hall, I noticed that Bill the Elk on top of the Elks Theater is wearing a red ribbon and a big long red scarf. Some of you might think that's for Christmas. I think it's for celebration of this day, because what you are considering today, this purchase agreement, is really good for the theater. It's good for Bill the Elk and everything underneath Bill the Elk. The entire building will finally be under one ownership for the first time since 1905 when it was built. And for the first time ever, the entire building will be dedicated to the performing arts. This buyer has already completed purchase of the attorney's portion of the theater. That space, when the attorneys vacate, will be converted to rehearsal halls, studios, classrooms for children, an event center. The entire building will be made available to community groups for bookings. Nonprofits will have a special discounted rate. It'll be under professional management, and the city will not be in the theater business. and go about doing the proper functions of a municipality. I'd like to thank everybody that's been involved in this process. It's been a year, I think, since we've started, and the first time around was not successful, but persistence has paid off. And in particular, the city manager, Craig McConnell, has been very helpful and persistent in getting this done. City Attorney Matt Pedracki has been very helpful. Assistant City Attorney, City Manager Allison Zelms has been very persistent in getting the information, particularly regarding the programs that are already booked that will continue. And Councilman Kukano, there are certain events that have no ticket sales, and even though there's a percentage of ticket sales that go to the buyer for rent, the buyer will not be getting any rent for those nonprofit events as a community service. All of those events will be honored. Restoration will begin, and when restoration is completed, the new owner will have professional theater management that will start booking new events. It'll be a terrific boost to downtown. My office has been downtown for 50 years, since 1961 approximately, and it's a pride I personally have as a citizen of this community to see downtown Prescott active in the evenings. During the day, there are many county seats in Arizona, and I go to all of them for various court matters. You can drive through some of them, and at 12 noon you can shoot a cannon through downtown and not hit anybody. In Prescott, Arizona, we have an active downtown. This theater, under this ownership, will increase the activity downtown, will be good for every business, hotel, and restaurant in downtown Prescott and throughout the community. So I'd like to thank you for the process, your diligence in getting this done, and look forward to working with the city in the future for matters related to this particular theater. Are there any questions from the mayor or council?
I just want to thank your clients for hanging in there too with us. A lot of times when that first offer is made and it's rejected on our side, we didn't throw in the towel. We stuck it out, made the city whole, and completed what the goals were for the Elks. So
I agree.
Appreciate that with your clients too.
We appreciate that, and we're happy that we're able to come to a meeting of the minds and get this done.
I would like to further comment to you.
Yes, Mr. Morrison.
Thank you very much for your efforts in seeing that this came into fruition, and for reminding the council today that sometimes city government needs to pay attention to what municipal governments are supposed to do.
Thank you.
Rob, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Elizabeth, welcome.
Good morning, thank you, Mayor and
Good morning.
Council. With me is John Olson, whom I have just replaced after his marvelous 10 years with the Elks Opera House Foundation as president of our nonprofit corporation and chairman of the board. The records go back to 1974 for this community's efforts to save this theater. When we had a contract, the Arts Council had a contract with the City of Prescott and the National Trust for Historic Preservation to do a three-part study of the feasibility of what has brought us here today. And due to the perseverance and devotion of people like John and the other board members and the guild chairman and her daughter, Deanna Hendrickson, who's also an important part of the guild, which is the committee of the foundation, a few of us are here today to thank you for also hanging in there all these years. We are contracting with the new owners. The contract is of record. We will make a decision on December 19th about what public statement the foundation will make, and we'll submit it in appropriate fashion. But we also will, over the next few months, be considering moving into a third season of producing. Since we ended the restoration in July 2010, the foundation resolved to go into producing, and you've seen that first annual season, or first season playbill, second season playbill, which came out the 1st of October, and the foundation will be deciding with the guild and their members, those of all of our committees, our future plans and our, I hope, continuation as a producing entity, but that's up to others to decide. John, thank you, all these years.
I can't come up here without having something to say.
You must say something.
You know, as Elizabeth said, it's been 10 years since the foundation came into existence. And I have to tell you that there's quite a number of very traumatic times that we managed to muddle our way through and to keep this effort alive for 10 years without, I'd say chances of getting it completed were pretty slim most of that time. And when major donors came through due to our efforts of just making it known that this is what we wanted to do, is restore the theater, then they stepped forward with considerable amounts of money. But there are other organizations that put money into the effort along the way. There was a time when I would have said, you know, I think our chances of getting this done at this present time with the present kind of donations we were getting, it may never happen, but it did, and we're very proud of the result of that. And because we had a local contractor that did the work, it was easy to work with them in order to get it done in as grand a fashion as you can see today. So we have to thank the city for being willing to enter into a memorandum of understanding whereby the city, the council worked with the foundation in getting this effort done. So I think it's kudos to almost a lot of people in the city, and of course everyone on the council and the staff that supported us in this effort. And we're most happy to see this thing come to this conclusion, because that's what we were aiming for all along. Well, thank you very much. We're going to be there. The foundation is not going out of existence, and so we're going to act as a kind of a watchdog over things, and we'll be able to determine whether or not the buyer is living up to his guarantees, so to speak. And so we'll be the watchdog, because the community has a lot invested in this effort, and we're confident that the buyer is going to be able to do that. So, thank you very much, and
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John, and the gentleman.
Weiger will introduce himself.
I know you'd come up here too.
I just came back from Hawaii for this meeting.
Mr. Mayor, before they really step down, I mean, we gotta give thanks to the volunteers that have stuck this out for 10 years with the foundation. You know, from the volunteers that are at the front door, dressed in period costumes, welcoming you in, you know, to all the people behind the scenes that make that thing happen. I've been to a lot of events there, you know, in my youth. I think that's where I saw Star Wars, and just recently Prescott Idol. Miracle on 34th Street, which I think just ended this last weekend, was fantastic. How can a second grade girl put on such a fantastic performance? And, you know, the time capsule opening, this really is a treasure of our community. And, you know, it is my hopes and wishes that the new owners work well with the foundation to keep bringing quality productions to Prescott.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I just wanted to add, Ralph Weiger, that for the 10 years that we've been on board of the Elks, I got started, I got linked into it a little bit by Elizabeth along the way. But I was promoting Big Brothers Big Sisters golf tournament that I started back in about 10 years ago. And I went to Hacienda Inn, and the current general manager at that time, Bill Lahan, and I said, okay, we're a new source of revenue for Big Brothers Big Sisters, and we're going to have the first charity golf tournament out at the new Hacienda Golf Club, which was going to be a year later by the time they built their clubhouse. And so it just happened. The owners, of course, are LaFonda from Santa Fe. And it just happened that about that time they bought the Hacienda Inn in that period. And so I was the guy hustling them to buy golf. Now, it's Antelope Hills, you can play around the golf, what is it now, about $65, $75 per person, I think. We wanted to charge $350 per person for the charity. And most of my friends didn't join up, but we got a lot of out-of-towners, a lot of out-of-towners to come for that price. From then on, Hacienda Inn and ourselves, other buildings right here in town, have worked together very closely. And so it was the 75th anniversary of Hacienda Inn building. And we had a 75th anniversary, we had fireworks on the roof, we had everything, it was fabulous. And at that meeting, we agreed that we would donate from our proceedings, from their proceedings, $21,000, I believe it was, to the Elks Opera House Foundation. That's how I became a member. John and I, Elizabeth, and 3 or 4 other people have been on it ever since. So we're pleased to see what happened, even though there was a hiccup along the way. And without giving all the detail, I knew they would stick with it, somebody would stick with it, and it happened. So Mayor and Council, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ralph.
Just a real quick
Good
comment.
morning.
Mayor, if I may, real quick comment. I think it needs to be said too, that there's a lot of thanks to be spread around, and one person, Nancy Burgess isn't here, but she did a lot to write grants and different things to help further the first lobby and those types of things that happened. But also there's a guy kicking around up there named Sam Steiger that had a passion for the Elks Opera House, and as one that sat on this council, gosh, going back to 1998, when the council decided to spend X amount of money to buy the Elks Theater and to hopefully bring it back to its glory, it's pretty cool.
Good morning.
Good morning, Council. Good morning, Mayor. My name is Maxine Dillahunty. I am a co-founder of the Elks Opera House Guild, and I want you to know we're excited and passionate about the Elks Opera House, and I will assure you the Guild will be at the Opera House until we are no longer needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Your Honor, my name is Quentin Linsmith. I am counsel for the anonymous donor who is funding the acquisition. I wasn't sure if I was going to speak here. I'm a lawyer from Columbus. Normally I'd wear a suit. I mean no disrespect to the council by coming casual. But I wanted to impress upon the council a few things. My client, who very much wants to remain anonymous for a whole bunch of reasons, including safety, is an affluent person, and her endeavors for the last 30 years have been largely philanthropic. And I want to speak to the notion of permanence of what's about to happen here and the legacy of what's about to happen here, building off the legacy of the foundation. In the last 10 years, my client has took an odd turn in her philanthropic efforts. She was passionate about a small symphony in southeastern Ohio that had no home. And so about 7-8 years ago, there was a building that was built about the time as the Elks Opera House. And it was built by the Grand Order of the Oddfellows, a different fraternal order. And at the time, some years back, it was owned by a Masonic order. And the building was amazingly like the Elks Opera House. The front part was 3 stories with office space, and then the theater was in the back, and with the hallway toward the theater, very similar. What my client did there, she wanted a permanent home for the Ohio Valley Symphony, which is this small symphony in the middle of Appalachia along the Ohio River. You would never think of a symphony in a place like that. She wanted a permanent home for it, so she provided the money to purchase the building from the Masons who could no longer afford to maintain it. She paid above market for it because they needed enough money to go build their own building. That was, quite frankly, the only way they could move out of the building. And then she devoted more money to renovate the building. And then she established an endowment that would provide perpetual funding for the maintenance of the building. And so now that organization is an absolute jewel in the crown of a small town called Gallipolis. on the Ohio River that is a performing arts center, and it operates as a very active hub for the organization. And the money she donated is subject to a gift agreement, whereby contract, forever, that facility has to operate as a performing arts center. There are limitations. It can never be sold. And I want to fast forward. She has done almost the exact same model of performance for the Tiz Art Gallery. She is the donor for the Tiz Art Gallery. The exact same thing happened there. Oddly enough, it was a turn-of-the-century building created by a fraternal order. And the exact same model was followed. She provided the funding for the purchase, renovation, and then established a permanent endowment for its perpetual funding. And now with the Elks Opera House, on a much larger scale. And I'm not going to give the council numbers because there is a tension here. The tension is I need to give you enough comfort to let you know that there is sufficient funding for not only the purchase, but a very excellent renovation, and then permanent operations for this organization. But I don't want to tell you the numbers because this organization, for it to thrive, will continue to need the support of the community. And it will continue to need to apply for grants and money-raising efforts. And if I throw out numbers of the endowment, members of the community will say, well, they got enough. That's good. And it's not true. They have enough money to last forever. But whether or not that's thriving is very different. This organization will still need the community support for it to thrive as an arts organization. But I can guarantee this council that it has more than sufficient money to complete the purchase and a handsome renovation and sufficient operating funds for a while. And separate from that is a significant endowment that will provide permanent funding for the operations and maintenance of the building going forward. It's a minimum level of funding so it survives. Whether it thrives above that is something different. And I will tell you that there's the gift agreement that applies here. My client did not just give money. There is a strict contract that prohibits the sale of this building. It prohibits them taking out a mortgage on the building, except up to a certain level. If they get in dire straits, it prohibits that if it requires a certain level of insurance, and it prohibits if something catastrophic happens and insurance proceeds are paid, it prohibits them from using those proceeds other than to rebuild the building. Unless it is so catastrophic, even then they still have to use the funds for a similar organization. So, and the mechanisms will be triggered so that there will come a time. This is designed to be, this was written not for who's in charge now, but for the contemplation of who's going to be in charge 50 years from now or 100 years from now. And there are provisions in that contract that provide third parties legal standing to sue the organization, to sue the board 50 years from now if they deviate from and breach that gift agreement. So the gift agreement is locked on, binding, enforceable contract. And I am telling this council, it is, you could call it, for this little piece of the arts organization in Prescott, you could call this the deal of the century. I will tell you without exaggeration, this is a deal for the centuries. Because that's what this is designed to be. If Prescott's going to be here 500 years from now, that building, and that organization will be here 500 years from now. If anybody has any questions.
Quentin, just stay right where you're at, okay? And Steve, you had?
No, I'm good.
Okay. And I know I'm speaking for the entire council and management team here. Since the day that we sat in the conference room and talked about this, there's been a lot of water down Granite Creek. And there was moments that I know was difficult, but on behalf of the council, I want to tell you how much we thank you for the role that you have played in this. Because without that, we know that we wouldn't be sitting here today talking about this transaction. So any transaction, it takes a willing buyer and a willing building similar. And we finally found a way and a meeting of the minds to where this could happen today. But the one thing that we have consistently told the foundation is that this council would ensure, to the best of their ability, that the pristine condition of the theater or the opera center would be maintained. And we are very comfortable that this is going to happen. And not only that, but the rest of the building truly will come together. And Frank, we want to thank Frank for the effort that he's played. Rob, it's been a team effort, and certainly Craig has been in it since the first moment. So I think it's a great day for us, and we hope it's a great day for you. And with that, I would like to offer a round of applause to you from your folks. So thanks for being here, and did you bring a check?
Not yet. We wire money, Your Honor.
Details, right?
But thanks again. Any other comments from the public? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Rob Petrich again. I just want to respond to Mr. Linsmith. On behalf of my client, the Arizona Nonprofit Corporation, we are most happy to receive large sums of money for this purpose from out of state, from this Ohio Foundation, right here to Prescott, Arizona. And it's an opportunity for everybody, and this money will be put to good use in respect for the historic Elks Theater and for its performing arts purposes. Thank you.
Thank you again, Rob. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. My name is Warren Miller, and what the city is about here I see as a kind of closure. I was president of the Arizona Arts and Humanities Council at the time that the city of Prescott purchased the Elks Opera House. We advocated strongly for the city to make that step because we saw the city as the best interim steward for this historical treasure of Prescott. We never thought that the city would be a permanent steward, but the city has performed very admirably in maintaining their stewardship of the Elks Opera House, seeing it through. It took longer than we thought it was going to the beautiful restoration as it stands today. So I just want to say that I think the sale that's presently proposed is very appropriate and in keeping with the long-term goals that those of us who have cared about the Elks Opera House for decades had in mind. So thank you, and I congratulate the city on their successful stewardship thus far.
Thank you, Warren. Mr. Blair, or Charlie?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. Just briefly and in simple words, I think it's a commitment made, a commitment kept, and a future provided for. And I am very appreciative to all of the parties that have played a role in getting to this point. And I appreciate the fact that for generations to come now, this building will be there. It will be in operation and provide opportunities for people who grow up in Prescott and visit Prescott to be part of the arts community. So thank you all very much.
Jim, it's time for the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I would solicit my fellow council members, including you, Mayor, to move to adopt ordinance number 48441243 with the emergency clause.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Shall we vote?
Passes unanimously.
Any other business, Mr. Manager, to come before us? Thank you for being here. Thanks for all the support, and this is what makes Prescott the community is, so thank you very much.